I'm Tom Langland here at RAJAY Turbo Products here at Kestrel Air Park just north of San Antonio, Texas. And today we're going to talk about what to look for during a pre-buy inspection if you were to choose or interested in a turbocharged system that has a RAJAY airplane. So you're looking at an airplane that has a RAJAY turbo system installed, and you're wondering, what do we need to look for and what should be inspected so we don't get a good surprise or bad surprise after the purchase and your first annual. So today what we're going to do is go through some of the items that we would recommend you take a look at to ensure that there's no surprises and you have a great experience during the purchase and initial operation of the turbocharged system as a new owner. So the first thing we'd recommend is taking the airplane up to at least 10 to 14,000 feet and really exercise the turbo system. That's going to really give you your first indications of how the turbo is performing and what kind of shape it's in. In some cases we find owners neglect or defer maintenance on the turbos. One of the benefits is you don't need to use the turbos in all situations. So it's really an optional tool that the pilot can use. So if there's an owner that never uses the turbos, they fall into the trap of deferring the maintenance and neglecting the turbos if it's something that they just don't use as a system on the airplane. So it's very important to go up to altitude, at least 10 to 14,000, exercise the system. You should see full manifold pressure. In a well-maintained, fully functioning turbo system, you should be able to maintain full manifold pressure all the way up to 20,000 feet. That is what would be a fully functioning 100% operational system. If you find that you have only 2 or 3 inches of increase in manifold pressure, that's really an indication that overall the system is working, but there's some leaks, most likely in the induction system on the pressure side, that needs to be addressed. If you find that there's no increase in manifold pressure whatsoever, it could be an indication of something or many things that need to be replaced, or it could be as simple as the wastegate control cable isn't connected to the manual wastegate exhaust system to close out the turbo to make it spin. So it really could be many different things, but doing that first flight is going to tell you what kind of shape it's in. So let's assume that you fly the airplane and you do get a slight rise in manifold pressure, but it's not full manifold pressure in the low teens or even mid-teens that when you did your flight test. When you're back on the ground, a couple things you need to check out. One is I would recommend using a shop vac, pressurize the system, having the shop vac blowing air out and seeing how well the system holds pressure. Once you use a shop vac and pressurize it, as the shop vac's running, use a soapy water mix to spray all the ducts, all the connections, anywhere where there's a potential for leaks, find it. It's very important to be super aggressive on finding any potential air leak in the system. Any leak whatsoever could degrade or prevent optimal turbo performance. So it's very important that that's done. RAJAY has custom-made high temp, high pressure ducts that are for RAJAY applications only. We have PMA on these, and we have virtually every duct in stock for all the different STC applications. If we don't have one of the standard ones in stock, we can always order it and get it to you within a week or two, so it won't shut you down too long. You want to check to make sure that there's no holes, leaks, abrasions, the ducts are flexible, and everything looks good. There's no leaks around here. There's also custom bellow ducts on a lot of our systems that attach maybe from a rigid installation transitioning to something that's flexible on the airplane, for instance, which needs more of a bellow duct example. Again, high temp, high pressure, custom made ducts that we make. If you see any applications or installations or airplanes that have SCAD or skeet tube, that's not going to cut it. It's not going to work long term, or most likely for any given period of time. Even as simple as the wire cut on these SCAT and skeet tubes on the installation, with this wire protruding from the hose clamp, you're going to get air leaks. So again, every air leak is important and needs to be stopped. So this SCAT and skeet tube is not going to work. So the next thing I would recommend looking at is all of the seals. On every installation there's at least one, possibly two custom seals that are quite soft and spongy to the touch that get old and brittle over time, or in some cases the owners don't replace them and they're missing, or they just make it out of gasket material. These are custom made with a ridge on here, which adds a really good seal on kind of a low pressure system, right? So the turbos pressurize the system, but this really is soft and pliable to make sure there's a really good seal. Nearly all the turbo systems that RAJAY has a compressor discharge box of some type, or air box, that has a actuating door depending on when the turbos are engaged. All of them have a rectangular seal, something like this, that need to be looked at and replaced if they look or feel stiff, or if they're missing, or if they're not this particular RAJAY style seal. And again, we have all of these in stock, so it won't be a problem. So if you pressurize the system, you address any or possible leaks in the system, the next thing I would recommend is using a bore scope and looking at the wastegate itself. On many applications there's only one wastegate on a single turbo engine. We have many applications that have twin turbos, so you'll have two wastegates. You use a bore scope to inspect the wastegate to see if it's deformed, if it's not closing properly or with too much resistance. These butterflies do wear out over time and need to be replaced. And this could be another potential area where you're not closing off the exhaust system completely, which then in turn is not turning the turbo at its optimal speeds. Now, we do have a RAJAY authorized service center specifically for exhaust systems and wastegates. It's Acorn Welding. So Acorn has all of our drawings. They have access to our technical data. They have all of our tooling to help reproduce these and ensure that you get a good fit and the right part back when you get them. And many times there's other shops that you'll have to send exhaust systems back multiple times just for custom fitment because they don't have a good baseline to start from. Now, we still recommend sending your old system up to Acorn because over time exhaust systems move, change, and shift, and we want to compare your particular exhaust with the tools and jigs that we have and make sure that when you get these back they fit properly and right the first time. So again, if you have a wastegate issue or any kind of exhaust issue, Acorn Welding is a RAJAY authorized service center, so that's something you want to look at. Now, some of the other things that you should look at that are slightly costly, and you don't want to be surprised at your first annual that there's a lot of parts that need to be replaced. So over the years there's been a lot of ADs on V-band clamps for various installations and airframes. RAJAY has no ADs issued against the R-band clamps. The FAA has come out with best practices guidelines on how to inspect and what to look for, both in situ if you're not taking apart the exhaust system, and also on the bench if you are taking the system apart. You can really do a good inspection. So the FAA recommends a 3 to 5 year replacement interval. It's not a hard requirement, but it's something that they felt was a good interval time. Again, you can inspect these, just be careful, check for cracks, check for any deformation that could show signs of failures or potential failures. Again, we have these in stock. On a twin turbo, twin engine airplane, you've got 8 of these V-band clamps and they're over $200 a piece. So, you know, you don't want to be surprised at your first annual that you got to replace a bunch of these. Now, in years past, the turbo blankets were not available were not made available by RAJAY, and a lot of customers had no choice but to remove their old ones and couldn't find replacements. So we have customers, or we found customers that didn't even know they were supposed to have turbocharger blankets on their turbos, which they are required. So check to be sure that your particular aircraft does not require turbo blankets. If they do, we have them in stock. If they're in bad shape or missing, if you don't know if you should have them or not, feel free to give us a call here at RAJAY. we'll be able to help you out and make that determination if those should or should not be on your particular STC or installation. But again, we have these in stock. They are somewhat pricey, so we would recommend this is something that should be looked at during a pre-buy to ensure that there's not a surprise going forward. So once you've finished addressing any potential leaks in the pressurized side of the induction system, you've looked at the wastegates, ensured that that's good, that should address most of the problems. If that doesn't, there could be some other issues that are going on. It could most likely then it would be a turbo that needs to be overhauled. If it is a turbo that needs to be overhauled, there's many options for turbo overhaul shops out there, and you can pick whichever one you'd like to go to. They can normally have a quick turnaround of 1 to 2 weeks, and now of course the condition of the turbo drives some of the cost of the overhaul. It could be as low as $2,000, $2,200, or it could be higher of $30,000 to $3,800 if the condition of the turbo is in really bad shape and they can't overhaul it and most of the parts have to be replaced. Okay, so now that we've looked at some of the potential items on the system, I'd recommend putting the airplane in one place and letting it sit overnight. Once it sits overnight, come back, check underneath the tailpipes to see if there's any oil leaks under the system. Now that could indicate several different things. Some go away, some are not an issue, some could lead or show signs of other issues to come. So if there is a small puddle of oil on the floor the following day, I've had customers experience that same thing, and they found that running the airplane a couple more times at altitude with the turbos on makes those seals seal up and actually stops the leak going forward. I've had other customers that tried that and it didn't work, and they still have a leak after flight after using the turbos several times. So if there's still a leak in the system, the first thing we'd recommend is looking at the pressure relief / check valve in the system on the supply side. I believe virtually every RAJAY installation has one of these check valves, and it should be looked at. That could be a source. Basically, the oil in the oil lines tend to backflow down into the turbo and then out the exhaust system in cases, which indicates a bad check valve in the system. We also have a check valve on the return side, which also will prevent oil from backflowing down through the turbo and out the exhaust as well. So the pressure relief valve on our systems is over $200. A check valve on the return line is quite costly. It's over $400. So you want to see if there's any oil leaks coming out of the tailpipe, because there could be some potential issues there or costs. Now the other thing that could be causing that leak is a bad scavenge pump. This is just the case or the shell of one of the scavenge pumps for the RAJAYs. These are still being produced today. They're commercially available parts. Not an issue. You can send them to an overhaul shop and they can overhaul these and wouldn't be a problem. What happens is the engine is pushing oil out, and the scavenge pump is supposed to pull that oil back into the engine from the turbo. So if it's not working properly, you could be getting excess oil in the turbo then out the exhaust. So this is a standard one. There is another unique scavenge pump that RAJAY produced. This is a unique pump. We have all the parts. There's a few parts that can be a challenge, but we can always support you with the gears, the gaskets, the needle bearings, the shaft seals. All of that is something that we can support in. Although it's unique, we'll find a way to make sure that you have a good pump and a good scavenge system, even on those unique ones. So that shouldn't be a concern or too much of an issue going forward. They can be repaired in the field by your A&P. So if you have any questions, feel free to contact us at RAJAY. Our website is www.rajay.aero. If you have any questions, we also, if you don't feel comfortable with a pre-buy with the person you have, or the mechanic isn't familiar with RAJAY systems, we do have RAJAY authorized service centers. Those service centers are listed on our website, and feel free to call them, ask them. We work very closely with those individual companies, and they can also work with you or support a pre-buy inspection. They have all of our data. It's available, free to them. They've worked on these systems, and we've qualified them to be sure that they are knowledgeable on what to look for and how to identify any potential problems. So also look at our RAJAY authorized service centers as well.